Welcome to Uggle's channel, thanks for watching today, and the year is quickly coming to a close, and that means we're going to talk about the best games of 2022. But this channel focuses on both current games and retro games, and so I will do a list eventually on my top 5 games that came out in 2022, but I thought it might be fun to focus on my top 5 retro games of 2022. Games that either I'd never completed in the past, or completed for the first time, or just really got into for the first time, or just simply found again and invested a ton of time into in 2022. So these are going to be my top 5 retro games of 2022. In 5th place, we're going to talk about a very old classic arcade game called Mappy. Now Mappy, I had played growing up on the NES, especially for like Mappy Land, and it was an okay game, I liked it, but and I'd played the arcade version of Mappy before as well, but something clicked this year where I just started playing Mappy and the strategy started coming together and I really started to get into Mappy. And it's just such a simple game. You play this little mouse here trying to escape from the cats, and you try to collect all these different objects like a safe or a Mona Lisa or stuff like that. It's just a very charming game, but the arcade action of avoiding the cats and trying to bounce on these little trampolines, I just love it. It's just a ton of fun. And the bonus rounds where you try to collect the little balloons or yo-yos here, I love that too. There's just so much fun about this game, trying to beat your high score every single time. And I'm not great at the game or anything like that. I'm actually probably pretty bad at the game, but there's just something charming about it that just really sucked me in this year. And like I said, I've played it in the past, but this year was the year of the Mappy. In 4th place, we're actually going to combine multiple games into 4th place. It's sort of a series, and that's going to be the Mega Man games on the Game Boy. Now, I know they vary in quality 1 through 5 here, but this is the first year I ever really gave the entire series a chance. I'd played a few of them growing up. I know I had 3 on the Game Boy, and I think I had 1 on the Game Boy for a while, but this year I actually invested time to try to go through all the Mega Man games on the Game Boy, and I've gone through 1 through 4 so far, and I'm getting ready to do 5 probably in a couple of days here. But going through these Mega Man games is just like going through lost levels of Mega Man is what it feels like, because I always loved the Mega Man games on the NES, and I just really never got huge into the Game Boy games, and they're so similar to NES games that it really is just like finding a ROM hack of the NES games, or just simply like lost levels or DLC content of the NES games. And there's just a ton of fun to go through and sort of see what's different in these games versus the NES games, because so many of the bosses, of course, overlap between the two. But I have thoroughly enjoyed my time on the Game Boy Mega Man games. And so 4th place is going to be going to Mega Man 1 through 4, and probably 5. I simply haven't played it at the filming of this video. And now we're getting into the top 3, and these games are just going to be all classic games, and it's a shame I never got into them a whole lot beforehand. In 3rd place, we have Mother Part 1. And this game, I was just blown away by it. I had never played any of the Mother games. I actually played Part 2 a little bit, had on the SNES, but I never really got too far into it, and I decided when I was sick back in August for a little bit, I was just going to find a good game series to go through, and I picked out the Mother series, and I thought, I'll start with the very first one, load up Part 1, and I just fell in love with it. I love the story of it. I love the soundtrack of it. Holy cow, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. So many classic songs on there. The battle system, it's a little grindy, but I like some of that old school battle system stuff. But it's such a charming, wacky little story to go along with it. And actually has way more depth than you'd ever think about for these Mother games. A lot of times they're just sort of written off as sort of wacky, crazy little games, but they're actually a really good storyline hidden underneath. The story focuses on a hero named Ninten. This isn't Ness's adventure, this is Ninten's adventure. And he goes around, he of course meets other kids who join his team, and they're basically trying to figure out what's going on in the world around him, what's causing all these crazy events, these animals to go crazy, and these humans to disappear. And they end up discovering this entire alien adventure that wraps Ninten's grandparents into the story. I won't spoil too much, but it's just a really great story, sort of sci-fi, that pulls all this together, and I just love it. If you've never played Mother Part 1, I highly recommend it. It will take you a little while. It's a little grindy. If you can use save states, it'll make it so much easier for you. But wonderful game, highly recommend it, and it's definitely one of my top 5 retro games of 2022. In 2nd place, we have a game I played quite a bit growing up, but I never actually finished the game. I just sort of played around the game and never took the adventure too seriously. But this year I sat down and worked my way all the way through it, and I thought it was excellent. That's going to be Castlevania Part 2. Now, I had beat Castlevania Part 1 and Castlevania Part 3 years ago, but I never beat Part 2. And I thought, this is the year I need to sit down and actually work my way through the game. And I gotta tell you, it was a great game. I know some people say it's a little bit too cryptic and you can't figure things out, But if you just sort of work with the game and sort of go from the clues and look at some of the manuals and stuff like that, it's really not that bad to figure out. And that's part of the game. It really focuses on that exploration, and it's very much of an atmosphere type game. You don't play this game for the action. Yes, there's some good action in it, and there's some good little fights, with different mobs and whatnot of different creatures. And there's some good creature design in it too. But you play this more for the atmosphere and the hauntiness of the game. And even when you're like going against some of the main bosses, they're not that hard, but it's the journey to get there and the experience to find all these areas. And I mean, it's just a great adventure. It's not really an action game. I say it's more of an adventure game. And if you like horror adventure games, you would love Castlevania II. And if you've never given it a try, let 2023 be the year that you try Castlevania II. In first place, we have one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life, and that's going to be Mother Part 3. Now, I hate to put two of the same series on this list, especially in two separate spots, since I put all the Mega Mans into one number, but these games are just so vastly different, it's pretty comfortable to put them in two separate spots. Mother Part 3 is a absolutely wonderful game. From start to finish, it has a wonderfully crafted story, a very touching story actually. It focuses on Lucas, and you probably know him from Super Smash Bros., but it goes with the story of Lucas when he loses his mother and what happens to the family and how it fractures apart when they lose their mother in a tragic accident. Of course, how does the father react to it? How does Lucas react to it? How does his twin brother Klaus react to it? And just how it tears the family apart. And it's just a wonderfully written story where it woves all these different tales together to come up with some of the most touching moments I've ever seen in a video game. It is just a fantastic story, but that's not all the game has going for it. The graphics, they're very charming, but also the music, man, it takes all the music of Mother 1 and just takes it to the 10th degree. The music in this game is some of the best music I've ever heard in a video game soundtrack ever. I actually made two separate albums on the channel, the Light Dragon album and the Dark Dragon album, just collecting some of the best songs of this game. And there's enough good songs to make up two separate albums for this game, and I left off tons of other songs from the soundtrack. I just say all that just to let you know there's so many great songs in Mother Part 3. But it's not all about the music either. The battling system is just a ton of fun to go through. It has this rolling battle system. It was actually introduced in Mother Part 2, but it's sort of perfected in Part 3 because it actually has a little bit of a rhythm system go along with it. But the battling's fantastic, the story's fantastic, the music's fantastic, the graphics are fantastic, it's a charming Game Boy Advance style, and this is one of the best games I've ever played, hands down. This is probably my top 5 games of all time. I can't believe I've gone so many years and never played it. I mean, I was really missing out on the Mother series. Now, I did play Mother Part 2 as well, and notice it didn't make my top 5 list because it just didn't pull me in as much as Part 1 and Part 3 did. But if you've never played Part 3, you'll have to get a fan translation of it, and there's an official fan translation, and it's a great translation of the game because it will probably never get localized outside of Japan. But if you've never played Mother Part 3, let 2023 be the year that you finally dive into the game, and I think you'll find one of the best games you've ever played. But those are my top 5 retro games of 2022. Once again, games I just simply never really got into in the past. I got into this year and was blown away by and just truly enjoyed to a very high degree. What are some of your favorite games of 2023 when it comes to retro games? Games that you discovered from the past that you just never really got into before? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, go out there, find a great game to play. Just simply have a great rest of the day.